Okay, well, welcome to a Monday afternoon live stream. We'll see if anybody jumps on, but this will be just a relatively informal stream today. The main thing I'm doing today is celebrating that the channel has passed 17,000 subscribers. Woo! And so that's a big deal for me and for the channel, but you know, I just make videos that I like anyway, and do whatever I want with this. It's not really a business for me necessarily, so I try to keep it more about things that I'm interested in than anything. So please, um, welcome to the channel if you're new, and if you're one of the longtime viewers, then thanks for doing that. Today we're also going to be hopefully having some people on asking some questions. We'll do a Q&A about logic or anything. And so we'll be answering some questions. The other thing I'm going to talk about is the new computer that is going to be ordered shortly. I'm actually going to be getting one of the new Mac Studio computers, and I'll describe how and why and which version of that I'm looking at, because I think a lot of people are interested in that computer and see how it could benefit them. So we'll go back and forth between a couple of these different topics today, and just see kind of where we settle. I'll start, I suppose, by um, talking about this channel a little bit, the Logic Pro X Life channel. I've been doing this now for about 5 years. So I've actually had a channel before that. I think I've had this channel since YouTube. The year that YouTube was released is the first year that I got onto YouTube. Mostly as a viewer. A long time ago, I posted some videos about some synthesizers, and then those actually did pretty well. They're not on my channel anymore, but they did really well. And then I just didn't make anything. I have a full time job and didn't do anything for a long time. On and off, I would post something here and there without ever really a concerted effort. And then around 2017 and 2018, right as those in between those years as they were transitioning, that's when I started doing a little bit more serious. And it all started because I was teaching a class at the university. And in that class, there was a student who was really interested in this. She's also on YouTube, actually doing really well. Has a Reason channel, and but I was like, I wonder if I could, what the benefit of this for my students would be. And so we talked about it and talked about building your career through this. And I thought, you know what, I'd rather talk about this from a place of actually experiencing it. And so I just got more serious about making videos about logic and really honing it in. Before that, I was making videos on a lot of different topics. My first video that did really well was about an app for iPad, the Tom Hanks app. That was the Hanks writer, typewriter. And I made like a little video about that, and it got picked up by a bunch of news channels and websites in Europe, and got like 60 or 70,000 views overnight. But I mean, it's like that didn't have anything to do with logic at all. So it's been, just under 5 years since I've really been doing just logic stuff. And I love the fact that now, when I post up a video, I get like a good group, a lot of the same people watching content, sometimes new people. And when I do live streams, even though right now looks like we're pretty short here. Let me see what I got going on. I can't see any of the actual chats, but it says there's people chatting. Let's see if it pops up. But now when I do live streams, people come on and we talk and work out problems and things. And, you know, it's interesting being a part of a community of people who are really passionate about a piece of software. And so I think that that's one of my favorite things. And so I really like this group and this community that's been building now for a period of time. So anyway, thanks if you're watching this now or later. Thanks for being a part of the Logic Pro X Life YouTube family and for watching videos and being involved with it. I think that it's super cool. So thanks everybody for doing that. Let's talk now for a minute on the new computer, because for a long time I've been, well, not a long time, since the Mac Mini M1 came out, I've been using it, and that's what I'm streaming from right now. And I don't have that many issues with this computer. I think it's well designed. I think that it was kind of exciting to be on the forefront of the new silicon wave that was happening. And I think that it really showed what this new technology was going to be capable of. And now I'm moving up to the Mac Studio. The one I'm getting, let me actually blow this up a little bit here. I don't want to go all the way full screen, but I'm just going to pull it across the screen. There we go. The one I'm going to be getting is the big one, the Ultra. The 20-core CPU, 48-core GPU, 32-core neural engine with 64 gigs of unified memory. And I think I'm going to upgrade the storage to 2 terabytes. And with the education discount that I get, because if you're a student or teacher, you can get an education discount. It's going to be with with the 2 terabyte drive, it's still going to be $4,000. And so that's kind of cool. I really went back and forth a lot between these two. Do I really need the bigger one? And the real truth is I do quite a bit with 360 audio and video. And I think the reason why I end up going with the bigger one is because when I'm doing all that stuff with the 360 and game design engines, the Unreal Engine and so forth, I'm going to want the Ultra instead of the Max. And so it'll be fun though once this is finally ordered and arrives. Of course, I'll do some videos about using Logic on it. It'll still be a new enough kind of thing for people that I think a lot of people will be interested. I was on Facebook yesterday at one of the Logic groups, and someone was saying, I'm getting one of the new Mac Studios. My old computer, has been really working well, but it's kind of, finally slowed down. And they were talking about a computer they had gotten in 2012. And I just was thinking, wow, 10 years is actually quite a bit of time for this. And so it's kind of exciting to be able to realize that the priority for this, a lot of times, we think if we get a new computer or a better computer that it's going to be exactly what we need. However, sometimes what the real truth is that we can probably make do and survive on a computer that's old and barely works. And so I think it's funny how much we sometimes we do that, where we don't always necessarily need what we want, and we can probably make do. However, that's not always the case, because if you want to do some stuff with spatial audio, then you really do need one of the M1 computers, one of the varieties of that. So, I think that there's a lot to that. Okay, cool. I'm just looking on the... Ooh, man. So my chat is not working at all. But I just pulled it up on my phone because the YouTube page here is not working. So sorry, let me look through the chat here. Gunther says, I am doing this Logic thing as a hobby. And I know tons of people who are doing this as a hobby. It makes it hard sometimes to justify buying a new computer for a hobby, but if you can, then I think it's worth doing it. Raccoon says, you are wrong, mate. From Big Sur, the version changed to 11. I don't know. Maybe you mean Logic Pro 10.7. I'm just going through the comments here. Bunch of things. I don't know this. I'm in the middle of a conversation that was happening, so cool. Let me see. So it looks like some people with some issues. Oh man. Memory column shows using 0 bytes. So that's not a question I'm going to be able to help anybody with. And there are probably just a few people who could really understand it. But one thing I was most interested in with the M1, and when I first bought my current M1 Mac Mini, where's my mouse? There we go. I bought the 8 gig RAM one, the 8 gigs of RAM, and I did that on purpose because I knew that a new one was going to be coming out, and I didn't want to necessarily blow the bank on one that if I was just going to be replacing it in the future. So the one I have, costs around $700. And I've definitely been keeping an eye on this because, what happens is, right now my physical memory is 8 gigs of RAM. You probably aren't going to be able to see this too clearly because it's going to be small, especially if you're streaming. But physical memory is 8 gigs of RAM. Memory used is 7.25 gigabytes right now. And, I've definitely loaded a bunch of instruments in Logic that where this memory used amount was crossing over the 8 gigabytes of RAM, which is why I'm always keeping my main hard drive empty so that I have the memory. It's using essentially my main hard drive as a virtual memory type situation. I don't fully understand all of it, but I do understand that if my hard drive ever fills up, then I have to clear it off or the whole thing goes down the toilet. And so a lot of times, all I need to do is essentially just shut that down, clean off my hard drive a little bit, and then everything's running good. But I'm really excited for the new Mac Studio where I'm going to have the 64 gigs of unified memory. I thought about upgrading the memory too, because with this one, you have a couple options. The first choice when you get this is to go up. So you still have the 20-core CPU, but then you go to the 64-core GPU, which if I was doing a lot of high-end graphics type stuff, which I do some, but not that much, then I would go for the bigger one, but I don't think I need that right now. But then $800 more for the 128 gigs of unified memory. And because I do have a fixed budget of $4,000 for this. I went with a 2 terabyte of SSD and just the 68 gigs of the unified memory. Oh, sorry. Let me go back to that. I still don't know why my chat is not showing up on my actual YouTube streaming page. Let me go back into the activity monitor for a second. Can you check how many RAM kernel tasks is using on your side? I mean, this may be the totally wrong person to ask any of this to. Where RAM kernel tasks? Scroll down. Okay, cool. Can I just do, or just do kernel task? Mine says 48 KB, 511 threads, 0 and 0 for the ports and the PID. So I'm not sure what you're seeing on yours, but that's what I'm seeing on mine. Now, keep in mind right now, the reason my memory being used, I have a project open, but you'll see Logic is doing 2.13 gigabytes of memory. And then the rest of this is the YouTube page that's facilitating the stream, and then OBS, which is my streaming software. And so it's like this stuff right here is creeping it all up. And then it looks like I've got all my Adobe stuff running in the background, as like it always likes to do. Real memory. I don't know if I can. Where do I see the real memory? On the right click, and now you can right click on the tiles, clicks thread. Right there. Okay, cool. Yeah, this is, I mean, I know how to use this to a certain degree, but I certainly, and then, so the kernel is saying 0 of the real memory. So for what that's worth, there you have it. So much of this, I watched a video yesterday on here. Someone was talking about, doing audio on the new Mac Studio, and it's full of misinformation. And there's no way that I'm giving everyone the right information because I don't know enough about that. So I try to stay away from topics where, my simple understanding of how the kernel works or any of that stuff. I just know my experience. And so I'm much more an experiential learner and teacher. And so I'm always trying to give people at least the right information or not give them information that could be construed as wrong. But here's my understanding of this. When somebody was doing a test with Logic on a Mac Studio, actually they were doing it with Pro Tools, and they were like, I'm going to load up, 20 of the same instrument, and we're going to see how it handles it. And they're like, oh my gosh, it can do it. It's like, I need to know more information about what they're actually doing, because oftentimes workstations, when you load up the exact same instrument with the exact same set of samples, they're actually going to be sample sharing. Otherwise, it's so inefficient. If Pro Tools doesn't sample share when they have the same instance of the same preset of the same instrument loaded up, then it's insane. And if they are doing that, then using a test where you're loading 20 of the exact same thing doesn't really matter. And so I think that becomes a serious consideration when they're doing those tests. Don't just load up another 20 of the exact same thing. Load up 20 of different things and show us how that works. They never did in this one video I was watching show me the CPU usage. They were just saying how great it was, how much better it was. And I was like, yeah, this seems a little bit suspicious. But with the Mac M1, the Mac Mini M1, it's like I don't run massive sessions, but I run decent big sessions. And as long as I keep, 20 to 30 gigabytes of free space on my primary hard drive, I've never really hit an issue. I mean, it just, everything loads and everything works and the fan never comes on. And it just blows me away. People say you need to have more RAM, and it's true. You want more RAM. There's no question. You want enough RAM to handle whatever instruments, virtual instruments you're going to be running. But the beauty of the M1 and any of these different system architectures is that you can run it with less RAM and it works amazing as long as you know kind of how to play the system a little bit. There's more stuff coming down from Raccoon. who says, I only have the 8 gigabytes on my i5 dual core MacBook Pro. And that's the other thing. Um, there's like all of this talk about this. And I was working with one of the guys I do private lessons with in Logic. And he's like, I'm running into this issue. I'm running this issue. It's like I can't load all these orchestral banks. And we talked about his computer. And he might, I mean, his hard drives are fast. It's as good as it's going to get for an external SSD. He's got all the right stuff, but it was still having some issues. And I'm like, well, just, figure out which of your tracks are causing some issues and start freezing them. I mean, the freezing takes a minute, maybe, sometimes, oftentimes less than a minute, right? To freeze a track. And then it's like it's not even loaded. It offloads all of the resources that are being used. And so it's just reading an audio file from your drive, and the plugin goes away. And all of a sudden, his computer is working snappy again. He unfreezes if he needs to make a change and refreezes it. So for someone to say, I really need this, that's ridiculous. You might think you need it, but you can make it without it. And I would continue to work with the M1. Except I have hit a couple limitations when I'm doing some of the Unreal game stuff. And I have a Windows computer that I do most of the 3D environment modeling and design, but I want to be able to do some of this on the Mac as well. So I'm going kind of down the middle of the road with that. Let's see. Gunther says, I remember watching a video maybe 2 years ago, and some dude looked into the RAM memory thing, and his conclusion, oh yeah, that it was not worth getting. I think a spider just fell down my shirt. Seriously. I think that probably 32 gigs of RAM is enough, and 64 won't give you the double of the buck, which is probably true. I don't know if it will, but what I'm hoping is I want to be that dude on Facebook yesterday who's like, 10 years ago I bought this computer, and I'm finally ready to get a new one. It's like, so I'm trying to ride the line right this moment. I've been running every project that I've done recently with 8 gigs of RAM on a Mac Silicon computer, right? I just have been proving for the past 2 years that we're fine. It's fine. I mean, I'm not multitasking a lot. I don't have Logic open and Final Cut and Premiere or whatever. It's like I don't have all these open, but one at a time, this thing is like a serious workhorse. It's great. I'm not going to be doing 8K video anytime soon. I think I'm going to leave that for the people who are doing like the big productions and Hollywood blockbusters. And I'll do 4K if I want, or even, 1080, which is what you're watching me in right now. And it's probably fine. Maybe the small print is not readable, but, that's okay. So I don't know if I need the 64 gigabytes of unified memory, but I might in 4 years. And so I'm trying to hedge my bets against the future a little bit. So I think that's part of it. I think it's smart to go a little bit. And the fan is an issue for a lot of things. I'm interested because was watching all of these other people using the Mac Studio, and the majority of them say that it's still quieter than the laptops that they came out with the M1 Max chips in them. And so the fully loaded laptops are still making a lot of fan noise, but my M1 Mac Mini, I've never heard a single peep out of it. I can hear a lot of things in my room. It's like I have a USB hub that every once in a while makes this little teeny click. But it's like this little room I'm in it's a very quiet place. And I never have heard that computer once. So I'm hoping the Mac Studio, which has been known to be louder, is not so loud that I can't put it in here. Some other good comments from Raccoon and Gunther. Yeah, and so I'm not into... Gunther makes a good point, but in 4 years, there's a completely new Mac. And I used to be when I was young. And one of the things I love about being a university professor. Uh, if any of you are still in the point of your life when you're like, I wonder what I should do with my life, and you have aptitude for teaching, and I think that that's important. And not everybody has the soul to be a teacher, but if you do, being a university professor in this field is so cool. We're actually buying Mac Studios for all of our studios and computer labs on campus. I mean, we're going to be spending like $40,000 or $50,000 to do it, but it's. I mean, we're doing it because it's time. We've been kind of waiting a little bit, and then this one that is in front of behind me on the screen here. Um, but it's either it's grant funding or teacher support or something. Last year, 2 years ago during the pandemic, it was the first time I think I bought my own Mac in my whole career, and I bought it because we didn't know what the pandemic was going to do to everything, and so all the budgets were just like locked down. Everyone was like, we don't know what's going to happen if we're going to have any students after this is over. And so I bought that computer because I needed a new one. It was during the pandemic. I was teaching online on Zoom every day, and my old computer was not handling that at all. It was crashing probably once per lecture, and so I just like bought the Mac Mini M1 myself. But it's like being a professor doesn't pay great. I mean, there's a lot of careers that pay a lot better than being a teacher, but there are some perks, and one of them is they tend to support you as a professor, and so I think that there's some benefits. And more comments. Gunther saying that is what I'm facing. My iMac is now 5 years old. I put the 64 gigabytes in it, and now I want the M1. I mean, the M1, even the cheapest one that they sell right now, as long as you know how to use it one thing at a time and being really careful with file management, is very powerful. If you're doing large orchestral projects, you can still do it on the 8 gigabyte M1 because you can freeze your tracks. I mean, but that would be the only time that I would, that I've ever needed to, is when I'm doing big things like that, and it's causing some issues. And then Duval says, I'm in a music tech program at my university. Awesome. Cool. I think it's an interesting place to be. I think there's a lot of opportunities now that things are reopening and the concert venues are happening and live music is happening. There's a lot of opportunity to be in this. Plus, there's sound and video and music for video games. I mean, there's a lot of opportunities if you play your cards right and diversify your education in the perfect way. And then Raccoon says, yes, it's nice to know what you can do with the computer and music, but you have to catch up with technology and invest a serious budget for a future proof. I think with an MPC one, I'll be fine because I'm making beats or electronic stuff, not orchestral scoring. I mean, that sounds like you know what you want and what you need, and I think that's the most important thing. One of my mentors many years ago wrote an article for one of those magazines, like Electronic Musician or something. There's one of those magazines that's still published, that's out there, that's published here from Colorado. But he wrote an article, and it was all about making it in the music business. And one of his lines that he used was, I can't remember exactly, but it was along the lines of, don't build it and they will come. It's like that from the Field of Dreams movie, build it and they will come. And he spent a whole section of this article talking about how that is like the worst advice. Because if you spend a lot of money on something thinking it's going to lead to clients and work, you could be really wrong, and then all of a sudden you've just spent a bunch of money that maybe you didn't have. And I think his point was, instead of instead of saying build it and they will come, use what you have until they come, and once they pay you, start investing that money into the next thing. So it's like, don't just build it and they will come. No, it's like build your business, and as they come and invest money as they come. So I've never been a huge fan of people who, especially students. When I was in college, I had a bunch of friends who used their student loans. I mean, they had the tuition covered from like their parents, but then they still took out student loans and bought a bunch of equipment. And some of the equipment they bought, they're still using. Microphones, mic preamps, cables, instruments. But anything that they bought that was software or computer related was outdated before they even graduated, So, I mean, don't use that money. That's a lifetime of debt for something that's over really fast. And just, use what you have. I mean, that makes so much more sense. Let's see. Pranav. I'm never going to say your name right. I apologize. Hey, new to mixing, how do you mix different sections of a song? Do you mix each section separately or do you mix the section with the most energy? Um, so I think I understand what you're asking. Behind me, I've got a mix up right now that I'm working on. And I always approach my mixing of my own songs, and even I guess people that I'm working with. I'm working with one of our singer songwriters on campus right now, and I try to find the arch of the song, the story of the song. Now, not every song has an actual story, but you want to tell a story sonically or otherwise, and so it's like if I start the song, I'm like, man, this is the best groove ever, and it's perfect. And then I get to like 2/3 of the way through the song, and I'm like, oh, I've already like maxed out everything. I've got nowhere to go. Then I've got to go back to the beginning and pull it back. And you can see on this specific mix right here, let me go back onto that mode. At the end of the song, and even at the beginning, these gray sections, these gray regions, a lot of those were there originally. And as I kind of got the vibe of the song, I'm starting to pull things out because no longer did I need like a harmony part here. It made more sense to leave that as a solo voice and then to build in the harmonies. And then at the end, originally I had the song just fade out. And then I realized, you know what? I don't want it to just fade out with a volume knob. I want it to actually fade out texturally. And so I got to this part here, and there's like 4 of the different parts go out. And then in the next section, another one pulls out, and then a few more down here, and then one more at the top goes out as it's fading out. So texturally, it's fading out just as much as the volume is fading out. So you approach every mix like you're trying to convey something, and that's how I mix. And so I think mixing can be different for every song. What works for one situation doesn't work. You'll see I've got quite a bit of automation happening here for various things. My favorite is this synth part that's right here at this section. Hopefully the sound works. Let me know in the comments if it's working. But here is the darkness of the way. It is here, and I don't know what to say. And I know that there was time, but I'm here. I just love that synth. That's the retro synth, by the way. And it sounds amazing. But it's like, if I just left that be stagnant across there, it would compete with everything. So instead, I'm automating all of this nuance into this. And so we end up with something that actually breathes with the music instead of competes with it. So for what it's worth, I know that was your question. And then you were getting some good answers from other people too. Gunther, for instance, said something nice. Raccoon says something about psychotherapy. Perfect. Heal. I think a lot of people do music for that. It's nice when you can also make it a career, but that's not everybody's situation, nor does everybody want to make it a career. So sometimes they just want to do this creatively on the side. And I'm actually I want to work on some ways with my channel to get more people sharing some of that stuff in a way that's beneficial to them and the community without feeling like you have to, put something on, Spotify or something. So, there's a lot of options for that. Himmel, hi, back to you. And then another follow-up question from Pranav, one of those. I see. My question was also about if you change EQ and compression settings for each instrument for different sections, or if you only change volume. I mean, depends again. This also depends on the song. In this case, with this one instrument that I was just showing you, of course, a synthesizer does that. And so I've got the envelope setting of the filter moving as you go. And so yes, it's like having an EQ that's changing depending on what you want to do. In terms of like vocals, no, I'm not going to be changing my EQ very much on those. Although there have been times when maybe at the beginning of a song I wanted something to be a little bit more muted and then to brighten up later on. So I have done that a few times. I don't think I have any of those on this song because, for instance, I have some of the brass playing, and most of the time it's fitting into one specific little narrow place in the mix, and so I don't need to change it. The voice goes up and down, the keys all stay stagnant. I don't know if I have anything on. No, this guitar thing doesn't change at all. So I don't have anything automated for the EQ or other effects on this particular mix, but certainly I've had mixes where I've automated like every little detail of something. Another question, or not a question, but another comment. Gunther says, I've always liked electronic music and I just like the knowledge around that I collected. I make tracks, but I know they are not good enough yet. And I think that that's garbage. I'm not saying that your music's garbage. I'm saying don't ever be held back by that. I think the best part of today is that anybody can release music. You can go on one of those services like DistroKid for like a yearly rate and release any music you want. And as long as you don't infringe on other people's copyrights, then you can release it. Then you can build up. You can say, hey, people listen to my stuff, and you'll get people who are interested in it. They say that all you need are 1,000 people who really like what you do. And you can run a successful career off that many people. People who are invested in what you do and will invest in buying and listening and buying your gear and stuff like that. So all you need is that. When I first started this YouTube channel, I thought all I want are 100. I just want 100 people who are really invested in what I do. And when I'm in the classroom at the university, sometimes I think all I need is one student who's here to be super invested and to feel like it was worth it. So everybody has their threshold. You need to figure out what your threshold is for what you do. If you're like, you know what, all I need are like 12 people to really enjoy what I'm doing and, to have a community. And then if that's what's meaningful for you, or if you just need an audience of yourself, then that's okay too. I don't think anyone needs to have the same threshold, but I think we all should figure out what our thresholds are. Cool. Thanks for watching the Logic Drummer Sound Better track video. I never know which of my videos are gonna get some traction on YouTube. I know which ones always get traction. Those are the update videos. I track the updates really closely for Logic and make a video every time there's an update. Those are my so-called bread and butter videos. And then everything else is like I'm working on a project And if I discover something kind of cool while I'm doing it, I make a video. I try to discover new things all the time. This particular track that I'm working on here is going to be used. I'm doing a study abroad with 14 students in a couple weeks. And we're going to be going to Prague in the Czech Republic and doing some recording sessions at some studios there. And the vocal part on this track are all like scratch track. We're going to be working with a couple singers to record new parts, and then I want to release this song. It has a lot of cool stuff to it, but it's still what I would call in progress because the vocals are the scratch tracks. But I think I like the way that the chorus is really settled in. And now I know that this is real enough for me. But is this real enough for you? Close enough to true. And now But it builds, so the chorus, even though the parts are the same, the arrangement isn't the same for all of it. And now I know that this is real enough for me. But is this real enough for you? Close enough to true. And now I know that this is real enough for life. But is this real enough for now? Cool. And then a little Pink Floyd section there with some sound design. This is the first song I think I've done in like 5 years that didn't have drums on it. And so that for me is kind of an interesting thing. I don't know. I usually do drums on everything, but this one definitely, it starts off slow and soft and doesn't have any percussion on it. You turned around to see me there. And just wait till we have like a professional singer on it. I mean, that's going to give me some goosebumps. Okay, cool. Other good comments. Always some good stuff coming in. And almost everything on this particular track, almost everything is Logic. So there's only one track that's not Logic. And the only thing that's recorded with audio, of course, is the voice. Everything else are instruments, except for this one little section with this the sound design. I haven't figured out if it's in the clear copyright, but I think it is. I found it on the Internet Archive.org, and it's the sound of an emergency communications. It's from the year I was born. There was a series of terrible hurricanes or tornadoes, terrible tornadoes in the United States. And it just leveled city after city. I mean, there was like 10, any given moment, there were like 10 different tornadoes all in this area. It just was a horrible, horrible thing. And so it ties into the theme of the song. And I found this audio file of the people talking about it. And then after that, as that ends, the strings are the only instrument that aren't Logic's. All fleet headed northeast, towards 275. Will Fleet Creek, your house exploded. 460. Creek and Plainfield is a shamble. 962, go ahead. This whole neighborhood, Hutchison Road, has been wiped out. Houses leveled, wires, poles, and power down. You better send everything you can get over here. Everything we got's rolling, 962. Hamilton County, Elmwood Police Chief. This is the Faster area. They're a licensed nanny and we need help. They also have the same problem, Elmwood. We're trying to see what we can do for you. Civil defense. The City of Elmwood is requesting all possible assistance that can be rendered. And now I know that this is just the strings. Oh, they sound so good. So another question came in about the bass. The bass, I use two basses on any project that are my own music. So a long time ago, even though Logic can do just about anything, I try to keep my core rhythm section always the exact same instruments. It's like I want to pretend like I've got a drummer who's playing their drum kit. It's like a bass player who's playing their bass, a keyboard player who can play whatever they want. But it's like I want a few of these things to always be the same. So there's two things I always use with the bass. One of them is the default Liverpool bass, which is just in the presets. However, I'm compressing the heck out of it so that because the Liverpool bass tends to die out relatively fast, and I wanted it to stay longer. And so I'm using that, but then I'm using a compressor to make sure that it doesn't die out too soon. I feel the changes every. You can see I've got it timed so that it almost just hits the top right as the next held out note. It goes a little bit over, but if I turn this off. See how it dies out too fast? So that's a compression tool to make it so that it's the sustain, it's pumping the volume in the opposite direction so that it gets quieter. This keeps it louder. And that's, I think, really nice. And then some other talk about jazz. I don't talk about jazz. Although jazz musicians are seriously some of the biggest brain people I've ever met in terms of musical harmony and things, but it doesn't come natural to me. So I'll just sit in quiet jealousness. What does frissony mean? You'll have to tell me what that means. I don't know what that means. Well, I might be. We've been going now. Man, the live stream software sucks today on Google's webpage. I can't tell anything. It's like missing all the data. It says my stream health is good, but I can't tell when we started. There's a few of you I missed earlier on in the comments who probably have left now. Yeah, I'll have to figure that out. I don't like it when YouTube all of a sudden throws a wrench into comments or something. It's like, why would it just work? Oh, something which causes goosebumps. Yes, that's the intent. It's like the whole song builds. It starts off super subtle, and then as it builds, it does the first chorus, which is it's a build off of the verse, but it's not like the full chorus. And then you go to the second verse, which has that synth sound in it, which is just it's like kind of the whole part of the song. Now. Right there. In the darkness of the way, it is here. And there's like a timpani hit in there too, so you get a little percussion. But then it's like a slow march, and all of a sudden you hit that the bridge section with that audio, and you're like, I don't know what this song's about still, but I want to know. That's the feeling that I was hoping people, when they listen to this, I want them to be like, I don't understand what this is about. I know that this is about something now, and I want to know what it's about. So that was the feeling. And then you give them the chorus a couple more times, and you're like, I think I'm starting to understand it. Cool. Let's see. And then you were asking about the bass compression again. That's a neat trick. I have a similar bass in my song. I don't know if I don't want the bass to die out. So I'll go back and show you that one more time. So essentially, this is a combination of threshold, ratio, and release. So when the bass is playing, you want to make sure that the threshold is down enough so that it has a long enough ramp back up to full volume. The ratio I just said, I mean, it's between 4 and 5 is typically going to be enough because that's generally speaking. If I'm going much above that, it's nearing limiter anyway. But then it's the release. So if I set the release shorter, it does this weird thing. So we want to keep that so it's nice and smooth all the way back up. And then if I set this down, you'll see it comes up too soon. So we just want to keep it. There we go. Nice. Oh, a little bit of weird glitch there. But switching this, because the default one is the meter, and the meter is great. I mean, I know how to read meters because that's how, when I first was doing any kind of recording, we started on 2-inch analog tape and we had to know meters inside and out. But I find the graph view infinitely more useful in the digital world because I can really quickly look and see the shape of my audio, and I verify with my ears to make sure that what I'm seeing is what I'm hearing. It's like you have to have the two in alignment, but it's super easy if I'm going on a bunch of tracks to really quickly look at that graph mode. Cool. Any other questions before we pull the plug on this? I think there's only a few people still chilling here, but any other questions before we pull the plug on this thing? How do you decide if you should mix with headphones or speakers? If the target audience is listening on headphones, does it still make sense to mix with speakers? So I give a controversial answer to this question. I don't give like the standard one. And I think that that's partly because I've done it all. And you're listening to this mix, which I just played for you, and it was mixed 100% on headphones. Now they're good headphones, but it was mixed 100% on headphones, and I do take it off and listen to it in various places. I have access to 5 amazing recording studios on our campus. I know people with amazing recording studios that are pro level that I could go in and work in Denver. But I do almost everything on headphones and then just check it on speakers. But I don't just accidentally do it. I don't want to make it sound like that's just accidentally happening. I use the NX system from Waves. I have all of the NX studios. The new one, the new one, which is Germano Studios, which used to be the Hit Factory. I hate it. It was the waste of $29. But I do love the CLA room. And I love the Abbey Road Studio one. There's CLA here in Abbey Road. And I've kind of mixed about the Ocean Way Nashville studio that they have. But all of these mimic recording studios. So, and it does a head tracker on the top of my headphones, which allows me to move my head back and forth. So it's like I'm hearing studios, the speakers in the studio. And so I really have fallen in love with that particular technology. And I like that now with the M1, any of the Silicon computers, you can use the AirPod Pro, the Apple headphones, and you can do a similar head tracking situation and be able to hear stuff through there too. So I can actually do that with head motion on 2 different headphone systems to hear the differences. And then I make notes. I'm always making notes. What sounds good on this system? What sounds good in that system? And then I come back and I make changes. It's like the first 5 mixes of this song were all over the place. I mean, I don't think I can play them for you right now. I might be able to let's see, from here. All files, desktop. Is this real? So this is the first version. You turned around to see me there. Second version, a little different. You turned around to see me there. There was a big jump in this one. You turned around. You won't hear the difference till a little bit later, but I turned around to see the things I never. But it just goes on and on. I don't want to play them all, but it's like that's 6 versions of what I still consider vocals to be rough that I'm taking out with my phone and listening to a bunch and making notes. Because if you're not going to mix in a good room with good speakers, and I will say, I have a lot of students who are like, what speakers should I get? And I say, depends. What room are you going to be putting them in? And they're like, well, my bedroom, I'm going to like mix on headphones because mixing with nice speakers in a not treated room, it's going to make it worse. It's not going to make it better. It's rare that it'll be better. It'll be equal to or worse than headphones. And so if you have, $100,000 to make a really nice control room, get a really nice pair of speakers to put in them. But if you don't, find a way to be able to have access to good sounding rooms, but learn how to mix on nice sounding headphones. And so it's rare that I've found a student or a hobbyist who's like, yeah, I made like a really great sounding room. I'll go into your room and I'll listen to it and I've never heard one that I was like, this is as good as being in a pro studio. Because a pro studio is the studio. The speakers come and go, but it's the room that's designed with symmetry and frequency control and inter-room acoustic blocking. And it's just so many components that go into there. You can't just do it and expect it to be great. Okay, cool. I think it's time. Let's pull the plug. Thanks everybody for watching and for letting me rant a little bit. Thanks again. If the couple of you who are still on here are not subscribers, make sure you become that because we just crossed 17,000. When we get to 20,000, we're going to throw a major party. I don't know what that means, but we're doing it for sure because 20,000, when I first was getting serious about this, I had like 300 subscribers and I thought, you know what? I don't care. I'm just going to do this and have fun with it. And now we're up to 17,000 and it's crazy. I'm pretty sure like 1% of the 17,000 are actually pretty actively watching videos, but hey, big pool means that it filters down and into those of you who are serious. And I really appreciate that. So, and we're going to be doing more of these live streams. We have been doing more. So we're going to continue to do more. We'll look out for a video I'm working on right now about automation, my 5 best automation tricks, which I think will be out tomorrow. And otherwise, I will talk to you all later. Get the heck out of my live stream room. I'll see you later.